will not bow down.
Let my people go.
We will not bow down.
Let my people go.
We will not bow down.
Let my people go.
We will not bow down.
Let my people go.
We will not bow down.
Let my people go.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Croydon Constitutionalist podcast, bringing classical liberalism to South London and beyond via YouTube, Stitcher and the Apple Podcasts. My name is Dan Heaton and my partner in podcasting today is Mike Swadling, the co-founder of the Croydon Constitutionalist. Hi Mike.
Hello, Dan.
And I'm very pleased to say we are joined here today by Hoong-Wai Cheah, the Croydon branch chairman of UKIP, and Sean Finch, the London and South East regional coordinator of the Libertarian Party. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello,
Hello
thank you
again.
for having me.
So, gents, the Conservatives have won I believe it's been described as a stonking majority, and not so long ago. The first stage of Brexit has been completed. We now go into stage 2, as it were. All that being said, what do we feel is next for freedom and democracy in this country?
Is that right? Well, personally, I'm very sceptical that the Conservatives are still going to deliver Independence Day, because we had Brexit Day, and I sort of try and differ the two. So we had Brexit Day on the 31st of January, and now we're waiting for Independence Day, and Boris is keen on delivering this by December of 2020. I'm very sceptical because I said this when I stood for in the general election just recently. I don't believe the Conservatives are conservative anymore. I think that they're known as One Nation Tory, which I think is a newspeak politician sort of term for they're actually anti-conservatives, they're actually regressive leftists, they're actually anti-family values, they're actually pro-EU. And I think they're just very good at hiding this fact. I mean, Boris isn't exactly known for being a Nigel Farage. He sort of flip-flopped on his opinion of being a anti-EU right at the last minute. I think he maybe saw where the wind was blowing. I'm very sceptical. I think it's up to all Brexiteers, regardless of whatever party they're part of. It's up to Brexiteers to make sure that Boris stays honest and delivers the policies that he claims to have delivered, including the people up north, which have obviously voted Conservative for the very first time in their lives, probably. So we've all got to sort of unite and make sure, keep putting pressure on the Conservatives to do what they said they were going to deliver.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Sean said there. So I think I'd like to say two things to it, though. I agree Boris is clearly not someone with integrity or principled as a Brexiteer. We know, despite what he says, that he's actually on the fence between the two, and he's just picked the side that he thought was going to win, and in this case he gambled correctly, and now he's the Prime Minister. So I don't trust him, but we can tell that Boris fancies himself a bit of a Donald Trump. Well, to be fair, Boris has been around in politics longer than Trump has. Trump is just so much better than him. But never mind that. I think Boris will do what he thinks is popular. So coupled with the fact that he's actually fairly competent as a leader. When he was a mayor of London, he was not good at his job per se, but he was good at delegating, and that's what makes a good manager: delegating and empowering. So combining his populism with his ability to delegate, he just might deliver what most of the people want. Now, here comes the catch. I think we as the people, as the electorate, have to be very clear on what we want, what we think is the best for the country, and be very vocal about it, to present not only the evidence but to present the numbers as well. If he gets that, I think he will end up delivering for us, just because he's in it for self-interest, a bit like how the free market works, really. But the risk is this: is that if we, as campaigners, as voters, if we're not vocal enough and letting him know what's going to keep him in power, he might go and do the wrong thing and just end up staying in power just because the opposition is just so bad.
Just bring a bit of optimism to this, and I have a lot of sympathy with some of the points. I thought on was it the 13th, the day after the election? I think it was the 12th of December.
Yeah, 13th.
The election, 13th. I thought Britain felt a happier place.
Yeah.
I had a feeling about the country similar to I remember when Tony Blair won the election in 1997. Now, I didn't vote for Blair. I did vote Conservative this time. I both times the country and even people that didn't vote for that party that ended up in power seemed quite pleased with the answer. So if I think to 97, I can think of lots of people who voted Conservative, but frankly were pleased that bloody major government had finished. And I think this time there are a number of people, and some of the commentariat have even said this, probably voted Labour, were pleased that bloody Jeremy Corbyn didn't get in. So there's kind of there was a natural point of it coming together for the country. I suppose the question here is, now they're there, it's a de facto majority for 4 to 5 years. It's probably a majority beyond that to the next election. I can't think of a time that this level of majority has been turned around in just one election. Where do we see, what do we think? So we've spoken previously about free speech and personal rights and your right to express yourself in different ways. Where do we see that going?
Oh, well, I mean, it's funny because I actually posted something today on social media, and it was the Telegraph, which is a massive sort of conservative supporting paper. They've actually printed something yesterday that said that, quote, it seems that Corbyn actually won because like, and this goes back to the previous thing I just said, is that the Conservatives don't seem to be very conservative anymore. Is that if they really did care, Boris really did care about free speech, and I think he would at least amend, if not totally withdraw, the Communications Act, the Public Order Act. I was trying to think of it, but various other sort of anti-free speech laws. The Contingencies Act, of this sort of deploying the military even in peacetime, these sort of anti-liberty sort of laws. But they don't seem. You would think that a person who was concerned about that, they would actually do this, but not Boris. He seems to be more concerned about building a bridge from Scotland to Northern Ireland, which I don't think anyone wants really. But I think he wants to slap his name on it. You've got the HS2, which is, again, no one wants, and he's again going to waste taxpayers' money on that. And I think it's this sort of, he's more concerned about leaving a legacy than he is about protecting civil liberties and encouraging people to speak their minds. So, like I said, I'm very sceptical on this government. I know people have said, it's the most libertarian government ever, and I think that's a load of crap. But I'm very concerned. And like you said, Brexit night, that was fantastic. No, I was in Parliament Square that night. It was great. There was definitely a euphoric sort of feeling, but I'm just, I don't know. I want to be wrong on this occasion, but I just got a funny feeling that the route that this government is going down, I think we're going to be like with Tony Blair. We're going to be quite disappointed with the outcome.
Yeah. I share a lot of your skepticism. I think where we are right now, it's such a huge, almost police state in controlling, regulating our everyday lives, what we can say, what we can do with our own bodies, with our own money, what we can even think according to some policing policies. I think we've got a really, really long battle ahead to bring liberty into the country. I don't know if this country was ever that libertarian to begin with, but definitely Marxist thought of controlling the people, of shepherding the people. It's definitely permeated the culture, and it's so much so that any idea of free speech and personal liberty is construed as authoritarian Nazism. It's the complete opposite, and they can't see this internal contradiction in what they're saying.
Well, I think that silent majority, the most people in this country, I think they actually are libertarian in nature, but they just don't even know what the word is. They're not
I
being
think you're
educated
right.
in school. We're trying to change it from the back end by, we're going to introduce all these sort of liberty-loving laws and stuff like that. But if people don't know what the hell libertarianism is, they don't understand the philosophy of liberty, the values of it anyway, then they're going to reject it, of course. You need to start this early in school time and actually promote. When I studied government and politics in sixth form, libertarianism, despite there being pages and pages of socialism and conservatism and liberalism, literally libertarianism was a paragraph, and it wasn't even a very good definition, So I think most people, the idea that you don't need big government to tell you how to live your life, you don't need, the nanny state to look after you. I think most people will go, yeah, I totally agree with that. The most average person is like, do you believe in free speech? Yeah, I do. I don't think any average person, not the far leftist, I think the average person will say, yeah, I think I want to say what I want to say, and not be the big mass state telling me, coming into my bedroom and telling me how to live your life. I think most people are libertarian in that nature, but again, they don't really know of the philosophy because it's, as the BBC says, unbelievably, it's the most influential political philosophy you've never heard of. You know, and so I totally agree with him.
So with this, I think a very common refrain in this country is, I say it as it is. I call a spade, and I think that accurately reflects this libertarian mentality of the common people. Now, the problem with libertarians is that generally libertarians aren't very fussed about government and aren't very active in politics.
I tell you, libertarian, like whenever I speak, the worst enemies of a libertarian are other libertarians, right?
Exactly.
There are people that will say you're not libertarian enough. So I'm in a bit of a hard place now. I get libertarians who tell me that I'm not libertarian enough, and then leftists call me a fascist. So I don't know where to
it's
So listen here. You've touched upon this. There's a view of the people, and there's a view of perhaps a political class that somewhere is different. Is that a conflict? Are we in a culture war that America's had for so long? Is that now engulfed Britain?
Yes.
I just wanted to say something. On a separate occasion, Sean and I were talking about liberalism and libertarianism. Now, in principle, the root is the same, but today, liberals are anything but libertarian. Now, unfortunately, Joe Bloggs out there, who's not all that interested in politics, who fancies himself a liberal, he actually means libertarian, but he supports the liberals, even though the liberals are not liberal or libertarian at all.
That word liberals or liberalism has been totally dirty. It's been totally corrupted. I mean, there's no point even using that word anymore because it's become I mean, you look at the Liberal Democrats we were talking about earlier. Like, they're neither liberal nor democratic.
Exactly,
This is the reason why Jo Swinson lost her seat, because she's trying to determine. She's trying to say, oh no, everyone thinks like me. No, they don't. Like, you think authoritarianism. You want to reject literally the biggest democratic act in UK history. You're a hypocrite. You've got Paddy Ashdown before he passed away during the referendum campaign saying that whether it's a percentage of 1% or 20%, whatever the result, you listen to the British people. Either you are a Democrat or you are not a Democrat. And then what are Liberal Democrats? Because I was a supporter of the Liberal Democrats at that point, and I actually voted Remain, believe it or not. And it was literally the day after, or at least a few days after the result, that that already when I met my Lib Dem friends, one of them I even helped get elected.
Oh dear!
They were already scheming and conspiring to overturn the biggest democratic act in UK history, and I was like, but that's how democracy works. You win some, you lose some. Totally ostracised.
So I'd say two things on this. Firstly, how shocking that you voted Remain. So I'll make that three things. Jo Swinson, of course, lost her seat to the Scottish National Party.
That's right,
So if we're going to talk about Newspeak, we're going to talk about the Scottish National Party and how they're not very nationalistic. But also, I think the word liberal to mean the progressive left, if you like. I think possibly that's come from America, really. I mean, yes, it was there in England to compare them to perhaps the Tories, when you had the Whigs and the Tories, but then Labour came in and were overtly to the left of the Liberals and somewhat socialist to a greater or lesser extent. I think what we're seeing now in America, though, is the liberals, by which they mean the Democrat Party. Actually, so many of them are now overtly socialist that actually, the term liberal may actually end up going back to what it perhaps was before. The meaning of the word may change again once you get perhaps a presidential candidate who's overtly socialist and doesn't mind being called socialist, which is something that even the more left-wing Democrat candidates in recent times have tried to avoid. They've always described themselves as a liberal rather than a socialist, even if we might have thought of some of their ideas as socialist. These guys are like, wearing a hammer and sickle, some of them. So it may be that the word ends up coming back from whence it came.
The only time I call myself a liberal is I would make sure I would put the word classical in front of that word, because then I've always distinguished the difference between a liberal who is an illiberal, who is, the people called progressive are actually regressive, and the people who are classical liberals who believe in, the John Stuart Mill sort of definition, the ideas of, freedom of speech. You've got, I detest what you say, but nevertheless I would defend your right to say it. You need these sort. That's a classical liberal. That is why, and libertarians. They are classical liberals, in my opinion. Like the libertarian is an umbrella, and within that umbrella is one of as well as economic ideas, it's also classical liberalism. I think you need the two to marry up. To be a libertarian, you need to be a classical liberal, and you need to be sort of a believer in the free market as well. So
I suppose this is where I should probably reveal a bit of myself, in that I would consider myself a liberal in the classical sense as well as in the modern sense of having a bit of leaning towards socialism, a bit of leaning towards a state intervention, as we spoke about previously. So I think my position is more about balance and finding what works, and because of that, I'm pretty liberal in what sort of ideas you bring in, and I think I can still use that and mean both senses of the word liberal. And to be fair about where liberal, the label liberal comes from, it comes from being liberal about cultural or social values rather than conservative about it. So you get that idea. So it should be more progressive rather than liberal. So I would identify as someone who's pretty progressive, even though I'm here, I'm libertarian, I believe in freedom, so I also believe in the role of the state. It's about finding the right balance, in my opinion.
So coming back to this concept where I started off asking about culture war,
Yes.
I think it's interesting here. I think that culture war could exist in. You've got the SDP and Spikes and Claire Fox left-wingers who believe in more state intervention, and the right wing of the Conservative Party, Libertarian Party, arguably lots of UKIP stuff. That's more of a right-wing organisation, some traditional names, low economic, smaller state people, both on the same side of this culture war. And I think this is my view is that Brexit was merely a battle of the cultural war rather than anything else.
Yeah.
But you've got people whose running theme, even if it might have more or less state economic intervention, is a right to say what you want to do, choose what you want to do, and speak the truth. And that's something that I think is possibly not going. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Is that a critique or?
I think that's just fair, but I think so. Personally, I'm not in favour of using the expression "culture war" because it invites ideas of conflict. But I think there is a clash of culture and cultural values, and I think what's happened over the last few decades, perhaps, is that. Things are getting more and more political, and so it's becoming more a battleground. I mean, in the past, there's always been a tension between people who are more conservative and people who are more progressive, people who are more authoritarian, and people who are more libertarian. But I think it's now all coming together in politics rather than in everyday life. Personal freedoms, personal responsibility. Now, this I think is pretty. Well, I want to make a very strong point here. I think this reflects that the culture, society as a whole, is trending towards more authoritarianism because we're thinking more in terms of politics. Why is every problem to be solved by politics? We talk politics for sure, but if you think that the solution is in government or in politics or in policy, you're already on the authoritarian, on the state intervention side. Now, by defaulting that way, I fear that the culture is shifting towards the left, however you want to define the left and right. I would call it authoritarianism. And I think there is an undercurrent of this uprising of resentment, of fighting back, thinking, hey, this is getting a bit too far now. You're telling me what to do with my life, even though I'm perfectly happy and thriving where I am, and I'm not doing anybody any harm, yet you're still coming here trying to tell me to have less sugar in my fizzy drinks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And I don't think it's simply a culture war. I don't think it's simply left versus right. Because libertarians, really, libertarianism really transcends left and right. It's more authoritarian versus libertarian. So you can be a left-wing libertarian, you can be a right-wing libertarian. But I definitely agree with what you say about everything's become politicised. Now, I never, ever thought years ago that I would be standing for candidacy, doing events like this now, podcasts and whatever. I just wanted to be a guy who be, working Royal Mail, be a firefighter, which I did, and have a family. That's all. I didn't care about politics. I know I studied it, but I didn't want to get involved in it. I was apolitical. But what's happened is that everything's become politicised. You go to a movie now, and it's all throwing feminism in front of your face, Star Wars, and they destroyed all of these great franchises like Star Wars, a bit of Star Trek, everything's been destroyed by it. It's too much in your face. You can't escape anything. Like sports now has become totally politicised. Going on about, we need more X and Y, we need more of this. Even the Oscars yesterday or the BAFTAs. There wasn't enough minorities represented. Well, it should be based like what Martin Luther King wanted on meritocracy. Like forget about whatever gender they are, whatever pigmentation of skin, which is totally irrelevant. It should be totally based on merit, but it's not going like that anymore. It's totally true what you say. And it's like you say that people rely on government to now do everything. Well, as Ronald Reagan said, the worst thing you never hear in life is someone come along saying, hello, I'm here to help, I'm from the government, because they'll always make it worse. It's like you look at every single government service, that is, whether it be transport or I don't know, any the health service, whatever it is, and you compare that with a private sector equivalent, the private sector always beats it. I mean, the fact that Tesla, that what's his name? Elon Musk. Now the fact that NASA, the guys who apparently got us to the moon, they're now paying Tesla. They're now paying
Isn't it SpaceX?
Musk, SpaceX company, because he has superior rockets. NASA is paying a private company to deliver their cargo to the International Space Station. And people go, oh no, but governments still have great services. No, they do not. I can't think of one. I mean, if you want to correct me, I personally can't think of one government service that is superior to a private market equivalent. I really can't. And it's this, and the green lobby are classic. The world's going to end in 10 years. Who's going to solve it? Government are going to solve it, really. So slapping a tax on carbon is going to somehow save the world. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
So bring it back, sorry, you mentioned about people feeling a bit of resentment of being told what to do. I think there's been two expressions of that recently that really spring to mind that have taken off. Ricky Gervais at I'm going to say it was the BAFTAs. But it may have been
Golden Globes, yeah.
Something in some media thingy, I don't know. And Lawrence Fox's outing on Question Time.
Yeah.
So, both of those, there seemed to be a bit of a popular uprising behind people who I would say spoke truth to power and spoke a freedom-loving truth to power. Any sort of thoughts on that?
Well, it's just the Oscars and the Golden Globes and the BAFTAs and all this sort of... First of all, all coming irrelevant now because people are watching more sort of Netflix services, stuff like that, where it bypasses all that sort of rubbish. And they're declining. I think the Oscars just yesterday got its lowest ever viewing ratings ever, because people are sick and tired, because they know that if they tune in, the average man or woman, if they tune in, they're going to get a browbeating from some millionaire celebrity who has never probably lived a working class life and do not understand the working class, and they're going to be virtue signalled and going to be told, and they're just using this sort of platform, as Gervais said, just come up, do your little speech, thank your agent, pick up your award, and F off, basically. And that's pretty much the appeal that most people think. They're sick and tired of being browbeaten by people, hypocrites as well, like, what's his name, Leonardo DiCaprio, who goes on going on about, oh, you shouldn't be taking aeroplane flights, and he's using his private jet, his private boat to go around the world. You know, these people do not live up to what they preach, you know, and I think people are getting sick and tired of it. And yeah, you know, it's. I mean, that's my opinion on it anyway. Yeah,
I think Lawrence Talks is pretty brave. Someone in his industry to say something bold like that, something as freedom of speech like that. I'm a bit worried about his future. To me, I mean, now he's pretty successful now, but that might hurt his future career prospects.
He's pretty much blacklisted himself.
Ricky Gervais, I think he can get away with it because he's a comedian. He's a pretty established comedian, and
he's done it. Yeah.
He can pass it off as a joke.
He's got so many quid in the bank.
Yeah, he don't care. Even he said that. Look, it's my last time. I couldn't give a damn. So.
But we do need people saying that sort of thing to stand up for actual popular opinion rather than what the vocal woke minority are saying.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you, but the reason, sure. like you say, the reason why people don't do that is because, like we said, Lawrence Fox has probably just axed his career now, and it's like
self-preservation.
If you say, I used to be a firefighter, and I know a couple of not in the same service as me in Kent, but there was other firefighters who finally just they snapped because what's going on in the fire service is that it's becoming too politically correct. It's becoming it's been infected, like with all the other certain emergency services, especially the police, but the fire service too. When they got rid of like Fireman Sam, the mascot, you know, why? Because it's politically incorrect because he's a white heterosexual male and it's not representative. You know, it's a bloody cartoon. Like so, but the last conversation I heard on station was they're thinking about changing. So when you lay out the flat holes, you simply to extend the line, you simply get the male coupling and put it into the female coupling, and it's been like that for hundreds of years, and no one's ever said a thing.
Yeah.
But because now we have these diversity officers who need to justify their jobs, who get paid more than firefighters, by the way, they have to justify their job, and then they've got to go, where can I find a problem? Male-female couplings. That's sexist. Can't have that. And it's sort of...
Well, they're proposing
is that sexist
instead
to the male or the females?
I don't know. Yeah. I honestly... Well, I don't know the logic to it.
So these clever people who were so woke, what do they suggest instead? The
A and B? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Something like that, yeah. Non-binary to non-binary, I don't know. But I know firefighters who have raised concern about this, and they're sacked. Wow. You know, so people will lose their jobs if they say something that is so, and that's the reason why it is a proper threat. You can't say what you want because if you say anything, you're sacked. There's a guy, the RNLI, he said, but that's more of a voluntary job, and he said it, and then he left. He said, I said my thing now, goodbye. Sort of Richard Gervais, I don't care, it's my last time. I'm going to say it as it is, and he left, and yeah. So it's happening everywhere, unfortunately. So
you know, in light of these issues that the country faces, you know, how do we think, whether it's yourselves or anybody else out there, how can we influence, whether it's politicians or the media or society, to get on board with more libertarian values and to fight back, if you like, against this woke culture?
The best thing, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the best thing you can ever do to try and influence a politician is to stand in a general election, or if you're doing it locally, then stand in a local council election. Obviously, if you stand as an MP, you'll need at least 500 quid to be a candidate. That's a democracy tax, I call it. The best thing you can do is stand as a candidate, and then even though you probably have no chance of winning, if it's a safe seat, that is, and you're not a part of a major party label, challenge your potential new MP. You know, really bring up these topics, because I can guarantee now, having been a candidate, all of the candidates, despite whether they're Green, Lib Dem, Labour, Conservative, they all say the same thing now. They all sing off the same hymn sheet. They won't say anything risque. Very rarely do they do. They'll be reprimanded if they do. and you've got to say it for them and get people to listen to you. I mean, when I stood, even though I've only got 295 votes in the last general election, people will come up to me going, wow, I've never heard a politician say that before. So you do, even though you won't win the election, because it's a two-party system really, you'll get ideas, you'll influence, and you never know, you might actually get that MP to adopt some of your ideas. You never know, probably not, but but at least you'll hear that. It'll probably be recorded as well, and you can somehow. I see the Libertarian Party as well as the political party as a pressure group as well, and I think that's possibly one of the best ways you can make your voice heard, even though you won't win. You'll probably lose £500.
So as a libertarian, I think, now this is probably going to be quite an unpopular opinion, I think there is very, very little we can actually do to influence culture. I think culture it's like the economy, it's like the sea, there's so much going on, it ebbs and waves. All we can do, all a successful politician can do is catch the wave and ride it like a good surfer. And then if you do well, you can carve your way a nice trail through the wake and really look like you've done something. But like Trump, he's not really done that much. All the great presidents, they put their name on something big, on a big movement, but they weren't responsible for it. Even, Nigel Farage, everyone thinks he's done the most to win Brexit, to either, it would depend on which side you're on, save the country or destroy the country. But he wouldn't be that successful if the opinion wasn't there already. The opinion was there long before Nigel Farage was recognised on the national stage. So what we can do, I think, what we have to do, what we're morally obliged to, is to just stand up on principle, stand up, have integrity, speak truthfully, provide the evidence for it. Whether or not you persuade someone is completely out of your power. You can just keep...
So we're basically saying, do stand for candidacy and we'll all get, But I think another important thing is, and I think this is the crucial thing, is that you need to have a youth movement in university. So it all begins in university. And unfortunately now, I said this earlier, I think universities are now Ponzi schemes. I think they're more, I associate them with indoctrination camps or indoctrination factories than they are sort of academic. I mean, you can't, like I said earlier, there is no diversity of opinion in universities now. It's all simply, you must think all the same way. And that's why you've got the rise of the snowflake generation, where as soon as they leave university, they break down by hearing different ideas. You need to start early. You need to introduce more liberty movements, or whatever you want to call it, freedom movements in universities, and at least it plants the seed then.
Absolutely.
Whereas we're trying to do it. I mean, it's also important to also stand for election, but it's far easier. I mean, I started talking about the values of liberty and libertarianism to people in their 70s who have never heard these ideas, and they'll reject it because they're not used to hearing these ideas. Whereas you do it years before, at least there's there's a seed being planted, and maybe in the future then you never know. And I think that's what, if you look at early Farage stuff, he was talking a lot at universities, and I think that I'm not saying it definitely did, but that might have done something then for future voters and future activists, maybe.
So here's the thing about university. When you join a university in the UK at least, you're automatically enrolled in a union. If that's
Student
not
union,
the student union, yes. If that's not left wing, I don't know what is. Now, I think it's quite difficult because of that to start a liberty movement. I think we should definitely do that, even though we will face a lot of persecution. Definitely, young independents at different universities are facing a lot of opposition from the union officials. But just going back to what you said about snowflakes, I think a lot of what we're talking about, it comes about through experience, through observing the world, through putting ourselves out there and experience the hardships of life and seeing what works for us and for other people. Now, the problem with pardon the disparaging remark, the snowflake generation, is that by their nature, they insulate themselves from the real world, from doing actual work and going through actual hardship. They think a bit of criticism is the worst form of Nazism in the world. They haven't experienced real life. So unless, I think they need to experience real life is where what will cause them to change their minds. Because I think for a lot of us, certainly for myself, I used to be much more left-wing, authoritarian.
Yeah, so was I. I mean,
exactly.
I used to wear a Che Guevara t-shirt. This is no lie.
Yeah.
I used to have a copy of 1984, the book, and my bookmark, no irony, no message to this, my bookmark was a Che Guevara postcard. I'm not joking you. Because I couldn't see what was wrong in this. I thought...
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
you are that person who thought that 1984 was a user manual rather than a warning book. You are that. We have found that person.
I found it really boring. I was reading it and going...
Him and
What's wrong
Jeremy.
with this guy? Yeah. No, I just didn't see the irony in it. Honestly, this is how... You know, because they don't teach you stuff. You know, they just go, literally all the guest speakers I had were all socialists. There was never ever a conservative even, or someone that was not as far left. It was always talking about how great was socialism. Oh, Che Guevara, hero. Despite the butcher of I can't remember. Lacamba, and all this, it was all this, like a motorcycle diary. We were made watch that, the motorcycle diary. We were made watch that. We were made to watch, what's the Al Gore film? Inconvenient. The only inconvenient truth about Al Gore's film is that he was inconveniently wrong, right? That's the only truth to that. You had Bowling for Columbine, all those, what's his name? Michael Moore films, a couple of those. We never watched anything that was, anything that was challenging those ideas. So of course I was going to bloody be going around wearing the Che Guevara t-shirt, using Che Guevara bookmark in 1984. So until I joined the workforce and started noticing the taxes were coming out of my wages, I go, actually this is not great. Yeah.
See, the problem is when you're young, you're taught about ideals, about ideas, and what should be, and so you're very idealistic, and you think, okay, if only the right ideas come into action, are put into power.
I mean, if you're listening to your sort of professor who's more sort of left leaning or whatever, and he's telling you that we got this great ideology, it's called socialism, and basically the state's going to give you everything. Everyone's going to be treated equally, and it's going to be this lovely rainbow world.
The thing is, I wouldn't say you even need a professor to do that, because you want a perfect world. We grow up hearing fairy tales and stories of and they lived happily ever after, and they did things correctly, and King Arthur was the best king in the world. But again, you're not going to grow out of this until you grow up and experience real people, and you see how incompetent human beings really are.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And that's why it's very important you start, having these ideas spoken about in university, because, like I say, it's a very easy sell to sell socialism, i.e. everything's going to be done for you, right? Whereas our ideology, libertarianism, is, well, we're not going to do anything for you. We said what we're going to do is we're going to remove the barriers that permit you, that limit freedom, and we're going to let you actually be free. You do your own thing. You do your own thing.
If you think that's great, you
right?
do it that
and
way.
You may fail. You may fail.
If you succeed,
you may succeed too.
All the better for you.
So we're not going to give you anything.
Yeah.
We are going to give you something. We're going to give you the ability,
the opportunity,
exactly. We're not going to guarantee you something like that.
Not
and that's why. And you look at the map here again. You look at and you know that socialism fails constantly, because every single country it's tried in, despite of race, despite of culture, despite of language, like you've got the USSR and Romania, mostly white countries, fails there. You've got the African nations like Zimbabwe, fails there. You've got the Asian countries like North Korea and Vietnam, fails. South America, the Latinos, Cuba and Venezuela fail. It universally fails, despite the language, despite the culture, despite the race. It is universally a failure everywhere it's operated.
So I think this is another big topic. Actually, we talk about socialism as if we understand what socialism is. I think at least the four of us are in agreement on what socialism is, but I think the average socialist out there doesn't realize what socialism is. To most socialists, they think socialism is about helping the weak, protecting the weak,
That's what I
helping
mean.
the
It's
poor.
an easy sell, isn't
Yeah,
it?
they think socialism is about ultimately egalitarianism, but they don't work it out because they don't have the experience. They don't work it out that the only way you can achieve ultimate equality is to have an overarching authority imposing it onto you. And they think that countries like the Scandinavian countries are socialist when they are not. They are not socialist countries. They're high tax and high redistribution, possibly, but that's not socialism. That's just high tax.
Well,
And
I think whose Scandinavian country, their equivalent of the National Health Service, it failed, didn't it? About a month ago. I can't remember what country it was. I think it was
I
Finland.
didn't follow that.
I can't remember what country it was in Scandinavia. It's not definitely not Sweden, but one of the others, and their National Health Service has failed totally, and the government's had to resign. The whole government's had to resign. It's caused another general election. No idea whether they fixed it or what. Well, I don't think you can fix it personally, but they've had to sort of, we're going to have to go the private healthcare route. So
Yeah, I think, guys, everyone can vaguely, even I can vaguely remember being young, and undoubtedly socialism is a nice sort of concept, isn't it? Everybody gets a handout from the state, etc., etc.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
National Health Service is lovely, cradle to grave, etc. It all sounds lovely, and until you end up paying tax and paying for other people.
Yeah.
see, I don't even mind paying tax if the government is good at spending that money.
It would never be good.
But
But
of
it
course, they
seldom
never
is.
are.
It seldom
because
is.
they don't have skin in the game, because it's not their profits at stake. They'll waste that money away.
And it's some of this, you touched on it earlier about it's an easy sell, people want it to be ideal. I often think, and I think this with adults, even in the world of work, I hear this every so often, so why don't they just do this and then that process will work? It's like, no process ever works. Processes work better or worse, but nothing ever works. It's all about degrees of success.
And compromises.
Absolutely. And everyone's trying to do their best, but you've got conflicting requirements and agendas and timescales and stuff like that. What really strikes me is something perhaps we've lost with the death of religion in the West.
Oh, yeah.
Is that religion tells you that you won't have perfection on earth. And I'm rattling through my brain. Obviously, I know Judeo-Christian religion's better, but I think most other religions have a similar view
exactly.
that you don't have perfection on earth, and that's almost, to me, that's the thing I'd want to get into schools and universities and teach people, is that there is no perfection, and then actually where you go from after that, I'm less worried about, because if you're aiming for perfection, I know there's a body count.
Yeah, and you're going to fail.
How do you get away from that?
If only we did this, everything would be better.
Yeah.
Sadly, that's not the case. But there you have it. Well, thank you very much, chaps, for that enlightening conversation. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for on this podcast. If you'd like to engage with us, please, on the topics we've discussed today and others, please do contact us via the Twitter at Croydon Const, via our Facebook page, via our website, croydonconstitutionalist.uk, or via email at croydonconstitutionalist@gmail.com. Mike, we've got a couple of events we've got lined up. Do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Leavers of Croydon still celebrating leaving the EU finally, regardless of what else is to come. So on the 21st of March, that's Saturday the 21st of March, we'll be in New Addington from 7:30pm at the Randall Tavern in Fieldway. We've got a future event on the debate about the future of the BBC, and we'll publish more details nearer the time on that. But get along to the drinks, get in touch with us as Dan says, and have a look at our website, which we're constantly updating.
Cheers, Mike. So it's been a pleasure as always, gentlemen. Thank you ever so much for contributing to the podcast this time. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Goodbye.